That's right. We are live. Welcome to the bottom of the rabbit hole. Class is in session. We've got a live stream. I guess I wouldn't call it an emergency, but it's definitely a last minute or spur of the moment live stream with our resident Matrix Online advisor, Vesuvius.
Hello, everybody. I am back.
That's right. We are back to discuss this ongoing conversation here. Let me go ahead and tweet this out that we are going to be talking about this a little bit more today. And please make sure you like the stream on your way in, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I just tweeted that out. So let's get into this. Shout out to everybody in the room. I see a Matrix Spider-Man in the house. J Lines. Salute to all of you for tuning in. And I don't know, where do we begin? I mean, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks now, but early in that conversation, there was a infamous video that got pulled down from YouTube. I believe you heard some of it originally, Vesuvius. It was an audio file, right? Correct?
Yeah, there was just like a Matrix poster, and the host there over on Geekdom 101, gave a commentary. He had a source that had watched the screening and gave his thoughts.
So since then, it's been pulled down. Geekdom 101 took to Twitter, and today actually you let me aware of it, or made me aware of it, that he was going to be re-uploading that audio. Now, I listened to it just before this broadcast, so it's fresh in my head, but I did notice that I wasn't sure if it was like some post-production, or in the beginning he explained the situation. So obviously at least that part of it wasn't the original audio, right? um but yeah, what were your initial thoughts on the Geekdom 101 audio leak? Because you heard a portion of it originally, and I didn't even hear any of it. I just read someone else's uh summary of it. And right, that's one disclaimer I kind of wanted to put out there in this conversation. I want everybody to understand, we'll put the link to the original in the description. I think I might have done that already. I'm not sure. I'll check that. But yeah, we'll have the link to the original audio in the description so you can check it out for yourself and give it a listen. Because as mentioned in the live stream, let's see if I can find this comment here. Yeah, it's already on the screen. Do we want to read and see leaked stuff out of context, though? Do we? I mean, you have to understand, all of this is out of context. Even the audio that is posted, he opens up with saying that his friend saw the screening, and we assume that this is the same screening that viewer Anon came into our live stream and talked to us about. Who was the other user? Soups, I believe. They kind of like cross-validated each other being there, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah, so they joined us in the previous live streams, but like I said, at that time I hadn't heard the Geekdom 101 audio. So some of it matches up, but like I said, V, what's your initial reactions now that you've been able to hear the whole thing?
Okay, so we do have to say that, yeah, just like in the title of this video, heavy spoilers. Okay, so if you
Potentially,
don't
potentially,
potentially heavy spoilers. They even talk about the end of the movie, which I
right?
probably won't get into because yeah, just with the way things could be recut, whatever. I probably just won't get into the very end of the movie. But my reaction, it sounds cool. I think I'm gonna like it. I mean, anything that's in the universe of the Matrix. I mean, I really like. I like all of the comics. I like all of the Animatrix. There's really nothing in this Matrix universe that I don't particularly care for. Maybe Path and Neo, but they intentionally took that one in a different direction. So originally, I heard the first 4 minutes of this Geekdom video, and tonight they reposted, and I was able to listen to the entire 20-minute spiel that talked as much detail as someone who saw the screening once could tell their friend, and then their friend could regurgitate into a microphone.
Right, because like I said, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is definitely the telephone game going on. We've got the friend at the screening telling Geekdom about what he saw once, and then Geekdom repeating that in a YouTube video, and us listening to that and talking about that.
So, do we want to talk characters? Do we have any particular questions that might kind of get us going in one direction or the other? Do we want to react to it from beginning to end? What do you think?
Well, yeah, my notes are the notes I took on, listening to that last or the re-upload, so to speak, is in order of what he was talking about. So, one of the first things he says is that whatever was viewed, test screening, whatever you want to call it, was non-linear, that it jumped all around as far as the order of things. So to your point that you just recently made, what the test screenings that everybody seems to be talking about could be completely different by the time we see the final edit. I mean, it might not be in the proper order that they watched it in, right? So that's number one. So yeah, we can talk about this in order of the things he brought up, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the order of the flow, in the final cut here. Again, assuming that all this is legit information, right? So he said that 95% of the visual effects appeared to be done. That would kind of maybe suggest that the CGI marker footage we saw in Berlin was related to Matrix 4. Also, right, recently this week, it's officially been announced that John Wick 4 is in production and shooting, and the cameras are rolling. So that might be part of that in terms of just trying to detective formula schedules here. And then after that, he jumped right into like the whole meta reboot Warner Brother jokes, which we talked about with viewer Anon briefly in one of the previous live streams.
Yeah. Now, this term meta, I think I've become familiar with it since viewer Anon posted on Twitter a little reaction. So when it said, it was like, it's funny, it's meta, it's yada yada yada. So I wasn't really familiar with the term meta. So I guess it's self-aware, and that a little bit worries me. I don't particularly like those storytelling elements where things are self-aware. But I'll keep an open mind. Just so you know, I am very biased when it comes to Matrix entertainment and the trilogy and even the games. Okay, I'm very aware of the flaws in the Matrix Online, but I still enjoy it overall. I'm very aware of the flaws with Matrix Reloaded, but I think it's a really good movie. So just to know, I'm being fair with my reaction. It'll be balanced. The meta thing worries me. That might take me out of it a little bit. I can still personally compartmentalize different elements of the story and the movie. If the action's good, but the story isn't as good, I can still enjoy parts of it.
So one thing I wanted to speak to just in terms of the whole idea of this test screening phase, right? Someone in one of the previous live streams mentioned that, again, we're talking in rumors, but it is rumored that Lana Wachowski, that there was, test screenings of the first Matrix, the original Matrix. Not sure if there was for the sequels. Because I think that was the correction. I think I said it like the opposite way, I think. And so to your point about the meta taking out of you, because it's been mentioned that there was like more than one joke like this, right? Like this is kind of like a running gag thing. That might have been part of the point of the test screening to, some of that might get edited out. It might, get cut down to just one reference or, something like that, depending on, how the survey was worded or, things like that. And potentially even some of the feedback that they're getting just from, us talking about it now and Geekdom talking about it and the viewer and non-review. So those are just all things I'm trying to keep in mind. There was a poll in the community tab on the channel the other day, and all things considered, the majority seems to believe that these leaks are legit. So that's kind of cool. But at the same time, like I said, I just don't want to be stuck in this mindset that what we're talking about or what we've heard Geekdom talking about is actually going to be the final cut or in the final cut. You know what I mean? I want to keep an open mind when it comes to that. Yeah, I get where the meta joke flavor can take you out of the escapism or the immersion of a film, especially if it's overdone. But again, we're going on the hearsay of the hearsay, so I don't want to put too much stock into it. The next thing he went into was the fact that it's not a prequel, which if you've been watching this channel, we've kind of talked about all the different clues from David Mitchell to Neo. I mean, I thought there's plenty of evidence to be sure or confident that it wasn't going to be any prequel or young Morpheus telling. And that it does take place after Revolutions. Now, where on the timeline after Revolutions is up in the air, because I don't know if you noticed, but if their understanding of the plot and the storyline is correct here, it does seem to kind of erase or retcon some Matrix Online events to a degree.
We might have to discuss those because my bias is going to show big time, but it sounds to me like a lot of the Matrix Online will remain canon, and this Yahya Abdul-Mateen character is a glaring example.
I see some of that. I think that the descriptions of that angle, which is he gets into that pretty soon. Yeah, I think the description of that is misguided, perhaps, or misunderstood might be a better word. But yeah. So the next thing here, so right now we're going into like super heavy spoilers mode. I mean, if this is accurate information that we're getting, again, as Magneto said, if you don't want to be spoiled, get to a hard line now. It says that the opening scene is with agents chasing the Bugs character. And in one of the previous live streams, I believe viewer Anon confirmed Bugs as the Jessica Henwick character.
Yes, Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist.
And then the next thing he says is that Morpheus is an agent. So
yeah, well, that's a little different.
Well, that's the thing. Since you brought up the Matrix Online being canon, I mean, do you see where I'm totally feeling like this could be one of those areas that is potentially misunderstood, assuming that Matrix Online is canon. If it's not, then it really doesn't matter. But if it is, I could see where, the simulated version of Morpheus, because it is facilitated by the system, is assumed to be an agent.
Yeah. Let me go into this simulated Morpheus thing. Morpheus was killed in the Matrix Online while in the Matrix. So there's a little gray area there to whether his RSI can live on. And he was later recreated as a simulacrum by the general, who was kind of like a third-party villain. He was there to antagonize the Zionites, the Machines, and the Exiles under the Merovingian. So he was there to kind of play off all three and stir things up. So he created this Morpheus simulacrum who seemed to be in distress, and the Zionites wanted to attack the machines in order to get Morpheus back. Turns out it was just a simulacrum programmed by the general with some like memories. I'm gonna have a hard time explaining it because I haven't brushed up on this coming into it. But there are parts of his RSI that are out there in the Matrix. So him being now this Morpheus simulacrum went on to work with all different organizations and even another villain that was outside of all three organizations. So for this simulacrum to go over and work on behalf of the machines isn't particularly a stretch, even though my desire for the Matrix Online to remain canon may be a stretch.
Yeah, that's I'm on board with that perspective with what we're talking about. Because that's the thing. This is where I feel like the plot points he discussed were like, I mean, like I said, he admitted that they were nonlinear. He admitted that he hadn't seen it himself, right? But this next note that I took here, coming off of saying Morpheus is an agent, he then goes on to say that like Neo created the new Morpheus sim.
Yeah, he did say that. That's a good point. I had forgotten that. See,
So that's kind of
now I'm gonna make. Go ahead.
no, but that's kind of weird. I mean, I'm gonna circle back. You brought up the general. I'm gonna circle back to that. But I just there seems to be a gap. Like, how do we go from from Neo creating Morpheus to Morpheus being an agent? It's just something doesn't fit there. Also, to that, he said that like Morpheus died of old age in the real world, so that would be like a hardcore Matrix Online retcon.
Kinda. Okay, so this is part of me making puzzle pieces fit where they don't particularly belong. But the Matrix Online was not finished, and there were constantly hints of him being alive. The game went over the course of about 5 years. I eventually accepted that that character was actually dead in the franchise. So for him to come back, or for him to live on in the real world and die of old age, um, okay, now we're talking a retcon. But if I go ahead and make these puzzle pieces fit in the spots I want them to, they always hinted him being alive, particularly alive in the real world, and kind of floating around another hovercraft. Could it happen? I don't know.
Right. And the other thing, it's saying the whole 60 years thing. So to your point, if you're going to say that, Morpheus was kicking it in the real world, that it could be explained in this way. I'm feeling like it's kind of a reach though. Because this 60 years thing seems to be pretty consistent. Like Viewer Anon verified that, right? Like he said, it was 60 years in the real world, but 20 in the Matrix or something like that, right?
I didn't get that detail. I remember who was it that said 20 years earlier? One of the production.
David Mitchell,
One,
writer. 20 years later.
Yes. Yeah, so he had said 20 years later. And now we're hearing 60 years. So, hey, time can be manipulated. I don't know. We'll just have to see how that goes. I think the other part, have we gotten to the part where he says that Neo reset the Matrix?
No.
Okay, because that one I'm very interested in. As you know, I'm very conflicted as to which version of the Matrix we're still in.
Well, he absolutely used the number 7. That happened.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I have all sorts of questions on that, and it may be a sidebar, but maybe I'll throw them in as we go.
I mean, it may be a sidebar. As I'm saying, this is a freestyle. I mean, at least I literally listened to it like an hour ago. So, I'm not crazy prepared to dissect this thing. Like I said, I took notes just to kind of remember all the bullet points and plot points that he brought up. But when you're talking about the sidebar, go ahead and get into it. Let's pick this thing apart, because there, you know what I mean? Like, there's some things that still rub me the wrong way as I heard them. And I think where you're going with it, especially the wording of them rebooting the Matrix, you know what I mean? This is one of those things I think could be very telephone gamey.
Yeah. Okay. So as for resetting the Matrix and it being the 7th version, my question is, did that happen at the end of Revolutions, or did that happen at a later time when Neo was, I don't know, doing whatever it is that he's doing now as a copper top?
Well, okay, so
And
let's pause right there, because that's the perfect segue to stay on track with the timeline or the order that World of Geekdom was talking about this stuff, right? So in this, he says that Ricci plays Neo's boss, which was, I was corrected in the last live stream, so we already had that information, right? And the Neil Patrick Harris character plays the therapist / analyst, right? And that this character, that somewhere in this character's backstory, there is a purge of the Matrix. Okay. And at that point, I would assume that this is when this so-called reset takes place. So that could have happened after the events of the Matrix Online.
thank you. That makes me feel much better. And that's what I kind of think. I do want to throw some thoughts out about the Neil Patrick Harris character.
Hey guys, just plugged in. What are we discussing? Shout out to Soups, one of our visitors from last week's show, who has seen. I'm assuming that this is all the same test screening, that Geekdom's friend witnessed. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to shout out Soups. But what were you saying, V?
The Neil Patrick Harris character. I thought it was entirely possible that he plays a new character, but it seems to me, okay, this might be my bias showing big time, but the general.
Thank you. Ding,
this,
ding, ding.
this analyst is a front. Okay, it's going to be revealed he's actually the general, which was one of the major villains in the Matrix Online. Oh, Jalen says I sound nervous. It's going to be okay. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm a real big fan of the Matrix Online, and since not very many people are aware of it, and it does kind of delve deep into the details of the trilogy, I find myself talking about it and referencing it a lot. So I almost feel like I've got one foot in the Matrix Online. If it's not canon, I'll be all right. Anyway, Neil Patrick Harris, I think that this analyst might be like a front. He's going to pose as like an analyst or a therapist, and he's gathering people on his side for a coup, and he's actually going to make his move. His grand scheme is going to come true. Now, I can't remember who it was, but we're in this big Matrix Online group on Facebook, and somebody called Neil Patrick Harris calling the general. And when I find out who that is, I'm going to shout you out. And I hope you're listening.
Hold on one second. We got viewer Anon in here. He said the heavy stuff is getting out there now. So shout out to viewer Anon and Soups for returning. Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I mean, honestly, this conversation was part of, all that happened within the same few days when viewer Anon made the tweet about that review. I believe the Geekdom video that got pulled down, wasn't that the same or next day?
I think it was same day.
It might have been same day. It might have been later on that day. It was one of the two. I mean, if it wasn't, I mean, it was within 24 hours. Let's put it that way. So that's why I feel, pretty confident that, the information is from the same screening that you guys saw. Where do I go with this? That's what I'm saying. Now, in the Jess Wick video, honestly, ever since the footage of San Francisco, which we're going to get into some of that because he did mention some of that stuff that we saw, right?
Yeah.
But ever since the helicopters and everything, I pulled up that picture of Neil Patrick Harris as the general in Starship Troopers and had them side by side with the general of the Matrix Online. So with this whole analyst thing, I mean, okay, even if there is no real direct reference to the general, his character, as you mentioned, as it's described to us from Geekdom 101, it sounds very general like. I mean, even if he's not playing the quote unquote general, it seems to be a very general inspired character. I'll put it that way.
It does look like it does look to me like even if it's not canon, they're taking this expanded universe and they're adapting it, which is cool. They've done that for Star Wars with some characters, and I'm not into Star Wars like I am into Matrix, so I can't name the characters. But they do take some of those characters from the expanded universe and they kind of repurpose them, and they might combine some characters. There might be some people in the comments who are a little more well versed with the Star Wars lore than I am that could point out these examples. But no, when there's some Star Wars stuff going on, I'm always quick to jump on YouTube and see what the experts are talking about, the comics and stuff like that. So it seems it could be something like that as well. But Neil Patrick Harris playing what seems to be a pretty complex character.
Well, before we jump off the general train real quick here, remind me, how does the general story end in the Matrix Online?
Well, he's dealt several very very hard blows to his force. So the general is actually an RSI to a sentinel. So sentinels are controlled by artificial intelligence. This particular sentinel led the attack on Zion in Part 3, Revolutions. So without a purpose, with peace now, this program does not have a purpose. So the sentinel takes his army of sentinels, hacks into the Matrix. They come up with like a military RSI, residual self-image, and starts trying to recreate the war so that he has a purpose, which is destroying Zion. So the general finds himself working with the Merovingian, which is a very dangerous game. The Merovingian captures his commandos and reprograms their subroutines to be subservient to him instead of the general. So now the Merovingian has a sentinel force in the real world, which I think was one of the highlights of the Merovingian story arc. This program, this very powerful program, has now a real world force and uses it pretty well, for a couple of different objectives in the real world. So the Merovingian, the general is actually brought into the employ of the Merovingian. He's now completely overpowered by the Merovingian, and I don't believe he's ever deleted. He when the story ends and the game goes offline around chapter 12, the general is still kicking around and still working with and for the Merovingian.
And yeah, that's the part that I was really getting to, because it seems like in this, the analyst has a similar, not final fate. So I see a lot of parallels between these two characters. He went on to say that the analyst tries to take over the Matrix, from inside the Matrix, and that Neo, the Neo inside the Matrix doesn't fully remember who he is, but he has like flashbacks of being the one, and that there's some reference to a cat named Deja Vu, which is funny to me because I always call it the Deja Vu Kitty.
The glitch kitty.
Yeah, that'd be the one. Black cat resetting, changing things. Right, and then we start getting like to the San Francisco footage. What is the coffee shop? Is that Stimulate?
Simulate.
Stims? Is it Stim?
Sim. Like simulation.
Okay. Okay, so viewer Anon has a beef with one of Geekdom's summary points here. He says that the analyst is in control of the Matrix. He isn't trying to take control of it. Right.
Wow.
And yeah, the analyst was described as a rogue program. That was a word that was used to describe the character.
Yeah, that one, that kind of supports that theory that could be the general, because the general is a rogue program. Absolutely. And very difficult to capture in the real world because he's sentinel.
Right. But what's also interesting to me is X Magneto's question is kind of along these lines. He says, "What of the architect?" I'm trying to remember if it was last week's conversation or the summary that I read, not that I just listened to, but somewhere someone referenced the analyst as a proxy of the architect.
Yeah, I heard that too.
See,
Where
that's
did
what
we
viewer
hear
non
that?
viewer non. He just says the analyst is not a rogue program. He is the successor of the architect.
Successor. Well, that's interesting. I wonder
Right.
if
It's
he
very
and
interesting.
Neo met again.
So what I find very interesting about this is, for me personally, like I said, I know a lot of people are worried about spoilers, but even among the test screening information, we kind of have conflicting information. So nothing here is like concrete. At the same time, this is why I wanted to talk about these reactions, because like I felt when I was listening to it, I'm like, I'm not sure. Like certain stuff just didn't really fit for me. Not a whole lot. A lot of it was consistent with the previous conversations that we had with viewer non and soups and all that stuff. But there were just a couple of things where I'm just like, I don't know. I think this might be, misinterpreted. That is the fun of trying to break all this stuff down here on the Matrix 4 hype train. But yeah, I just I feel like oh, hold on. Viewer non says he very specifically calls the architect his predecessor at one point.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he also says, I don't want to spoil stuff, but I'll clarify stuff that's out there that I find inaccurate. Well, we definitely appreciate you providing corrections here, because like I said, I think the fact that the all these spoilers are unconfirmed, and like in this case you're saying you've watched it and you find that it's not an accurate description, I think that is very useful here in this conversation, and hopefully it doesn't turn into something where we find out that none of it is true. I think it's kind of cool to be part of breaking the story, if you will. But yeah, hold on a second. It says the analyst rogue program can control people in the Matrix. We're gonna get to that. We're definitely gonna get to that he didn't
Yeah,
talk
I
about
got
that
some
until
thoughts
later
on
on.
that.
Yeah.
So let me see. Vladimir Jr. says an analyst like a shrink or a data analyst? Probably both, because
It sounds like both.
a lot of these names have a double meaning. Double
Right.
meaning. So you're probably right on both.
Which is a very, Matrix flavored way to approach things, the double entendre with the names. Um,
Yep. I'm
but yeah,
curious to see what bugs means.
Geekdom 101 definitely referred to the analyst as being Neo's blue pill therapist. And I believe the analyst is more of like the machine program title. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about that assumption there. Um, so the next thing, so where do we leave off? All right, so Simulate, the coffee shop. So, like I said, these are pictures that we saw from San Francisco. I think while they were shooting this scene, right, of Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves in the coffee shop. And it is described that this scene is where Neo runs into Trinity inside the Matrix. However, uh, at this point, I believe he describes it as neither one of them knows who each other is, and that Trinity has a family and a child, even. Um, but again, at this point, they don't know about their previous interaction in the Matrix trilogy yet, as it was described. Um, and then the next thing, speaking of bugs, the next thing he goes into is that Morpheus and Bugs search for Neo. So right, so there's like this big gap from Morpheus being an agent to Morpheus being created by Neo to Morpheus searching for Neo with Bugs.
Yeah, so I'm interested in bugs because, when I hear bugs, I think like ladybugs or ants or something, but it's probably a bug in the system, right? It's a bug in it, and considering I'm just going to take the ladybug and ants right off the table. So if there's a double meaning, it's it's probably like a bug in the system and what else? What's that other thing? What's that other thing? Because, you know, um, a lot of these characters have, you know, different meanings. Like I'll take Switch, for example. Like when I first heard like her name is Switch, like, oh, this is Switch in Epoch. Like, oh, like you flip a switch and you turn something on or you turn it off. And then, the rumor, which I don't know, like I always look to you for this stuff for the confirmation, and I don't know if you've ever confirmed it for me, but the rumor of her changing genders from the real world to the Matrix. Okay, and there's a switch going on there. So that's a cool double meaning, and that's the things that I love about the Matrix is all these layers. So I'm very curious to see what Bugs's name actually means. What's the other
Yeah,
meaning?
I didn't confirm that for you. Lily Wachowski did. That was the Switch Explained video. Lily did verify that rumor had legs. That was true. That the original Switch character was supposed to I believe, male in the real world and female inside the Matrix. I believe. I might have that backwards. Um, so real quick here, Jay Line says, "Oh man, just an idea. It would be cool actually if the Matrix team has a leak task team where they have a decoy story to keep the actual one fresh." And viewer non replies to that every fan base says something to that effect whenever a movie leaks. It never happens. Um, yeah, I mean, with the Project Ice Cream, thing, if there was going to be a project that had misdirections, this would be one. But yeah, I just I don't think that all of this is an elaborate misdirection. Just me personally.
It seems a little detailed with the San Francisco footage and the the coffee shop simulate. It seems a little well placed. So
And it's like, for me, it's like the Resurrections thing with the jacket and the gift jacket. The fact that
And the card.
the fact that the video came down so quickly, and same thing with the Geekdom 101 original YouTube upload. The fact that Warner Brothers hit it with a copyright strike, kind of like is showing their hand a little bit. Now, Matrix Spider-Man says he saw the Space Jam X Matrix video today. I did see a quick clip of it. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. Did you see the whole thing, V?
Yeah, I watched it. It they're using Space Jam to promote the Matrix, at least the Matrix 4. Yeah, it seems it's almost like line for line, and then there's a little bit of Speedy Gonzalez dodging bullets. It's fun. I think I prefer the South Park parody a little bit more from back in the day. If anybody remembers that one, if not, I'll see if I can throw it up on my Instagram.
Yeah, no, I'll be sure to check that out. I know that people have been talking about the Matrix references in Space Jam, and we know that those are both Warner releases.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing the Disney Marvel thing where they're setting up their next thing in their current thing.
So, okay, where did we leave off? Right. So, the next thing he talked about was Jonathan Groff playing the new Agent Smith, and that the wording was that Agent Smith was remapped, and that's why he looks like someone else. Like that's the wording behind the Smith new shell, if you will.
Yeah, I don't really have thoughts on this. My questions here are the dates in which Jonathan Groff was announced as a cast member and the date that Hugo Weaving said, Lana decided she was going to go another way.
Well, those don't have to necessarily match up, but what I will say is Jonathan Groff was announced maybe a couple of months before that Smith story came out. The Hugo Weaving story you're talking about. So, I mean, it could have lined up. There's wiggle room for that.
And I like the way he said it. He said, Agent Smith is played by the guy from Frozen.
Right, which we know is Groff sauce, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Groff did. I think he did the voice of the guy with the reindeer. I've seen this movie enough. I should know.
You talking about Frozen?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, I think that's accurate. Now he goes on to say that Groff playing the new Smith brings the Merovingian back inside the Matrix with no Train Man and no Persephone. So I find that very interesting because, again, if we're talking about Matrix Online canon, how is the new Smith program accessing the underground Train Man network of bringing programs in and outside of the Matrix without the Train Man or the Merovingian? Right? That shouldn't be able to work that way, correct?
I would give the multi-layered Matrix the benefit of the doubt on that. We got light hallways, and we know that Smith had access to those. My big question on this is if Neo reset the Matrix, maybe he trapped the Merovingian forces in the Matrix, and they were deleted upon reboot.
Well, I believe the way Geekdom 101 describes it is that the Merovingian was outside of the Matrix at the time that it was reset.
Yes, he was able to, quote unquote, escape or hide. We do know that he has many exiles in his employ that can partition off parts of the Matrix and create safe boxes and safe spaces for him to hide in. Constructs that he can escape to. The train station is only one of them, and the train station is a very specific construct between the Matrix and the real world. So there's other places that he could hide. But maybe if Neo was the one to reset the Matrix, maybe the Merovingian didn't have the same foresight that he did with the others. Of course, he had the time down. He knew exactly when Neo was going to reach the source and reset the Matrix in the first 5 versions. But it being in that no man's land in that 6th version, if I'm correct in guessing that Revolutions ends continuing on that 6th version and Neo reset it at a later time, the Merovingian might have, it could have been an accident that he survived the reset. Who knows? So that's going to be something that I'm, very, very curious as to how that plays out.
Now, viewer Anon here says that he doesn't recall this being specified. The Merovingian just says he survived the reset.
Of course he did. He's cunning.
Right, but I'm just speaking in terms of, like if someone sat and listened to the Geekdom 101 breakdown as the gospel, or even our live stream last week, as the definitive "This is the Matrix 4" spoilers. What I'm saying here is, some of these things that were explained, another viewer is disputing. So I feel like there's a lot of room for interpretation, or even perhaps, like I said before, gaps. And that's part of the fun of the Matrix franchise, right? Is filling in the gaps. Like people kind of go and let their imagination explain certain things. Am I making sense here?
Oh yeah, of course.
Hold on. So Soups here says that the Merv is in hiding. Right. So I hate to jump out of order here, because he doesn't bring this up for a while, but we're already on the subject. He said that the Merv is an old homeless man. So the reason why that jumped out at me is because Lambert Wilson, in an interview, in one of the French interviews, says that the Merovingian is down on his luck in the Matrix 4, is how Lambert Wilson described his character. Right. So viewer Anon says, viewer Anon said, I would also say this is a dense movie that the people talking have only seen once, so it's natural to misremember certain things, which is a fair point. I mean, I've been watching the Matrix trilogy, off and on for, 15, 20 years now, right? And still people might bring up something that I didn't notice.
Yeah, I love when that happens. When somebody has a different take on it. Oh, of course, seeing a movie like this once and any changes that might make that may be made, in the editing room. We're still, I think we'll have an enjoyable experience in the cinema. Project Matriculated.
Good times ahead. And speaking of the future and just kind of the flavor of where this conversation has gone, I mean, I'm working on fan fiction, right? And even I'm trying to emulate that aspect of the universe where you've got the surface material that your casual watcher can say, oh, I follow that, or that's cool. But then you have the diehard Matrix fan who can like really pick up on the different references, or will go back and watch it again and watch it again, and then be able to follow the trail that you've left. That level of layering. So it would not surprise me if the Matrix 4 is packed with that. In fact, that's what I was hoping for, is that this is a film that we're going to want to watch more than once and really break it down and figure out things that we didn't figure, in the first go round. It sounds like that's the case here, just discussing, some of these basic plot discrepancies.
Yeah, all of the Matrix movies are highly interpretable, which is why the Wachowskis don't really talk about them very much. They want the speculation out there. They don't want to set the record straight. They want us sitting here talking about it 20 years later. So I'm actually glad that they haven't gone on and set the record straight and talked about the events of the movie and what they actually mean, because it's what they mean to them, but it's layered so much, like it could mean so many different things to so many people, and that's great. I love that people have completely different interpretations about the movie than I do. It's fun.
So the next thing we have here is that right, you have that says that Neo fights Agent Johnson, that's the quick Agent Johnson cameo there. And then the next thing is that Neo takes the red pill again. So that, in many ways or in some looks, the Matrix 4 mirrors the original.
I mean, we kind of saw something about that earlier on, so I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked, and this brings up other questions that I had from the Matrix Online. So, that whole insertion, is it possible? Is it now possible? Do they now have a process to reinsert humans? Sounds like it.
Well, remember they did this and there's a Matrix comic that has that storyline. So they've definitely shown that in the Matrix universe that reinsertion is possible. And I really feel like the leaked picture of Keanu Reeves bald, getting his head shaved for the Matrix 4. I felt like that in conjunction with the Nemesine plaque of the hovercraft, I felt like that kind of implied that Neo would be reawakened. Now, there's no direct reference to taking the red pill to exit again, but it doesn't surprise me at that point. With him appearing to be released from the pods again. So,
Yeah, I
hearing
think
that
that's,
part didn't surprise me.
and I hope we have a new kind of take on that. Like, I hope the process has changed because, in the first one, if that hovercraft is not there, or if Sentinels attack the hovercraft, then that person drowns. So, what's going to happen that's going to be a little bit different and a little bit more exciting than what happened in the first one? Like we were kind of learning on the first one, like, oh, this is where, the people are housed in pods and in the goo, and then they slide down the slide. They're supposed to be dead, so the tower just flushes them down the drain. And now the hovercraft happens to be there and is ready to pick them up. Now, in this time period, say 20 or 60 years later, is the truce still going on? Are people allowed to extract? Would they be allowed, if they were allowed to extract people, would they be allowed to extract Neo? And what's that fight going to look like? And
So,
you or non, you don't have to answer these questions. These are just things I'm putting in for the audience that don't want to know the entire plot.
well, he says it has changed. And speaking of change, this goes back to the whole 60 years in the real world thing. Geekdom said that Niobe is old in Zion, that she's an old woman. And then the next thing, what were you going to say something about the Niobe situation?
Yeah, you're just wondering, like, are we gonna have Ghost? I like the Ghost character. I hope Ghost is in there. Does he have hair?
Well, the thing about it is, the way this is being explained, right? 60 years. I mean, he could have pulled a Morpheus and died of old age. I mean, it says the next thing here, it says that Morpheus has no body in the real world and that his sim is referred to as quote unquote codex.
Yeah,
And
so that's an interesting word.
Now you're definitely more tech savvy than I am. So what is special about that word for you?
Okay, so codex is something where, in my experience, and I'm actually Googling it right now, A codex is something that I've had to download in order for like a media player to play a certain file type, and I'm not
Okay, that
very
sounds
well
right.
versed in this stuff. What's that?
No, that sounds right. Like I believe my interaction with Codex was the same thing. Like an old, I don't even remember what Music Match or something. You had to download Codex for this type of MP3 player to play or something. You know.
Music Match, man, that's going back a while. Is that like
Well, that
2005 Music Match?
yeah, somewhere in there, early 2000s. I mean, you're talking about Codex. That's the only thing that I remember it being an experience. I mean, I'm sure there might have been others, but yeah, J Line says Codex means a key.
A key. Okay, well, there we go. That brings up questions. Key to what? It's the key to finding the real Morpheus who's still alive, and he's on a hovercraft called the Nabonidus. That's a deep cut. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. So the context of this codex, that's something that I'll be kind of looking hard at when the movie comes around. What exactly does that mean for Morpheus?
So where were we here? Right. So Morpheus has no body in the real world. Um and it says here, or rather Geekdom claims that the machines revived Neo and Trinity's bodies in the real world after revolutions.
Yeah, a little anticlimactic for me, but what options do we have here? Can I talk a little bit more of the lore of the Matrix Online, or am I driving everybody crazy?
Sure.
So we have these robots in the real world that they just go around and they recycle humans. They recycle dead humans. So one of them came upon Trinity and went to pick up her body and recycle her, but found these two other robots doing something to her body. So of course the big speculation is that they were either jacked into her cranial jack and removing a special code, similar but different to Neo's Prime program, but comparable. Okay, kind of explains a lot of this. Her giving him powers. Okay, it's not just a power of love. It's a, I don't know, a codex or a key. There's the way the programs fit together. They complement each other. So um, it could either be that, or it could be maybe they're removing a child that was conceived during the cave rave that nobody likes, but would give that scene a little more credence. So um, it could be that, but for them to just go and fix their body with android parts, a little anticlimactic for me, but it is what it is. I guess we have our answer on how are they still alive. They were, I guess, just revived, kept alive on life support. I mean, if you're
Well,
going to
yeah,
be
I
on
think,
life support, one of these pods is probably the best place.
and I think I might have potentially, or no, I think I used the revived word as a possibility in the the Trinity and Neo Reborn video. Just theorizing about how it could be explained in the Matrix 4 that they returned, because we've never gotten a concrete answer as to what the machines did with their bodies. And to your point, if somebody would have the technology to revive them, it would be, the AI of the future in the real world there. So not too far of a stretch. see what else he talked about here. Okay, so revive their bodies in the real world. If Neo wakes up Trinity, he'll unlock his full power. So right, because he's talking about how the analyst wants to keep Neo sleeping, right? He doesn't want Neo to be able to overpower him inside the Matrix, and connecting Neo and Trinity could potentially do that. What I found interesting is, to me, it really reminded me of kind of the end of the Holy Trinity video, where I kind of talked about how underneath all of the debate over, whether it's wireless or an act of God or all those things, that, the love factor, that Trinity is the key to Neo's full potential. So it looks like the Matrix 4 highlights that a little bit, assuming that this is going to be part of the final cut, right?
Yeah, if it's part of the final cut, I mean, there's certainly a like the Wachowskis said, there was a deep connection between Neo and Trinity, and it was in one of those behind the scenes, and I think I featured it in one of the videos on my channel where they were talking about, like, why Trinity's kiss actually revives Neo. It's more than just that. There's she kind of breathes life into him, and there's like this, she unlocks his powers, and he's then therefore the one now. Okay, he kind of had the belief, he was beginning to believe, but once she made contact with him and kind of unlocked his powers using the code that she also carries, it complemented his powers, his prime program, which is part, I mean, it's part theory, but it's mostly canon. And the Wachowskis were actually vague about it, in that behind the scenes, they didn't explain that to Carrie Ann and Keanu. They just said, well, they're deeply connected. They're deeply connected. How does Trinity know that Neo has been jacked out of the Matrix and she can now pull the plug before the EMP goes off? She just knows. They're deeply connected. And this is kind of like an explanation why.
So viewer Anon says that he doesn't agree with Geekdom's interpretation of that specific plot point. He said there's a very specific reason the analyst wants them apart, but it doesn't have anything to do with Neo's power levels or the like. So this actually has me kind of excited. Just again, I think we talked about this a little earlier, just in the idea that things are presented, or it appears things are going to be presented in a way that they're left open to interpretation, and that, I think that's part of what makes Revolution such the choose your own adventure. Having to fill in those gaps on your own really encourages the audience member to participate. I mean, you don't have to. You could take it at face value, but I think that the people that take it at face value and don't participate are the people who end up, saying that they didn't like Revolutions. Okay, so David asked if he thinks that the action in Matrix 4 is going to be as epic as Matrix 1. And viewer Anon says that he would set your expectations lower when it comes to action. It's not trying to outdo the others when it comes to that. Which I think is fair. I think that's, something that we kind of talked about. I mean, it's not like you can really outdo the original. So,
well, when it comes to action scenes, I'm a little, since I follow like the UFC and actual sport fighting, I'm taken out of a lot of action scenes, but I kind of look at them a little bit differently, and I understand that they're more of a show, and the choreography is a huge part of it. The entertainment value of these fight scenes. So I'm still going to be very interested to see, not what they're doing, but how they're doing it. Is it going to be like a very raw fight scene, like the Neo versus Bane in on the hovercraft, or is it going to be more? Um, is it going to be more of like the sparring sessions between Neo and Seraph or Neo and Morpheus, which were like beautiful and graceful?
So we got a question here. Wasn't the Matrix rebooted in MXO? Now we had this conversation before. Didn't I look up the wording? Didn't they use the word reconfigured in the Matrix Online and not rebooted?
Yes, reconfigured, which I guess pertained to like a couple of the locations why Neo could run from the government building to the Heart of the City Hotel at the end of part one, but you couldn't actually run the steps in the game. And they were like, "Oh well, it was reconfigured."
Well, that's why it's interesting. It's important to me to see in the Matrix 4 what wording is used. I mean, did they say that the Matrix was rebooted? Did they say it was reset, reconfigured? I'm curious. I feel like there might be some telephone game there. So I do want to hear what the wording is officially when we see the film.
I don't expect uh, consistency in that realm. I really don't. I'll be happy if we do get it, but I don't expect it. I think what the Wachowskis say in part four is going to supersede what happens or what's mentioned in the Matrix Online.
So just to pick up where we left off with Geekdom's audio of full spoilers, he says that Smith still has agent powers and still wants to be free, but is no longer a virus.
Okay, so my take on that is that when Neo accepted Smith's assimilation, their code canceled each other out and essentially destroyed the Smith virus.
Okay.
Which if Neo is going to come back with any type of prime programming, then Smith as an agent should come back as well. If they go on to trade code from there, and the Smith virus is allowed to kind of revive, that would be something would have to happen for Smith to take those powers. But Neo with prime programming and Agent Smith are almost they're equal and opposite as explained by the Oracle. So so that almost makes sense to me.
So, okay, we already discussed him saying that this is supposed to be technically the 7th version of the Matrix. And the next thing was they have to free Trinity from the fields. I thought that was interesting. I wasn't sure. Maybe Soups or Viewer Anon can help clarify that because, I thought that they were only fetuses in the fields. So,
telephone game here, because I think
yeah.
he kind of fumbled the words a little bit.
You think he meant power plant?
I think he meant power plant because they're grown in the fields and then they're stored and allowed to grow in the pods or the
Right.
power plant. So yeah, the field is kind of like the babies on the machines that look like trees, and the tower or the power plant or the pods are where they're grown as adults.
So the next thing he said I thought was very interesting. He said that Agent Smith has henchmen who are not agents.
Before we get into that, I want to go back and I wanted to ask you a question about one of the comics where somebody was freed from, I believe, the fields because it was a child. Do you see any parallels?
Wait, I'm sorry. What was that?
There was a comic where somebody went to the fields to free a child. Do you see any parallels with them
Right.
freeing Trinity?
That's the one that wasn't printed. That's the one comic that wasn't printed in the 20th anniversary edition that you're referring
Oh
to.
crap!
Yeah.
Wow.
I have to look up the name of it. But I think we talked about this maybe just in private. I don't think it was during a live stream. But in that specific comic, I just felt like there might have been an inconsistency or something that I missed. In terms of them freeing the child from the field. Yes, that is how the story appears. That they eventually free a child. From that like baby pod, as you mentioned, the infancy pod, the fetal bud, if you will, before it goes to the power plant, right? Morning Sickness, that's the title of that comic.
And Randolph Carter asked, why didn't you invite Geekdom to this? Geekdom might be trying to keep a low profile. I believe
Well, I mean, he
Lazarus
put this on
tagged
YouTube.
him.
I
Well,
tagged, no, I posted in when I think when it first got pulled down and he was like looking for alternate like places to post or something. I think I replied to that. I didn't hear anything, so viewer non says Neo and Trinity are in the power plant in a specialized place. So that makes more sense. It definitely makes sense that was telephone game and that he meant, like I said, the pods and not the fields, because there is a slight difference in location there. The next thing we have here, right, we talked about the Merovingian being an old homeless man already, I believe. He said that. And the next thing here, this is where things kind of get a little choppy, but it points back to the San Francisco shoot. It says that they wake up Trinity, go back inside the Matrix, and meet with the analyst in the coffee shop, and there's a bunch of SWAT guys. And that definitely backs up stuff that we saw, leaked photos and footage from the San Francisco shoots.
So we have some SWAT, which we saw in, the original movie. There's quite a bit of tactical police and SWAT team, and a lot in like Enter the Matrix. There's a lot of SWAT. We didn't talk about Smith's, I guess, tough guys or clones. Who's going to represent Smith? Who's going to fight for Smith? Isn't he a rogue program?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the Smith stuff sounds real random. I felt like there was some telephone game stuff there. Like it seemed like there was a lot of gaps when you started talking about the Smith stuff.
I'll venture a guess. If the analyst can, I guess, kind of overwrite and control just people in the Matrix, then maybe he does that on behalf of Smith, and Smith has like a force to work with.
So viewer Anon says that that's out of order. I'm guessing he's talking about the whole coffee shop analyst meeting timeline. He says saving Trinity is the driving factor of the movie. Can we get her to agree to leave her husband and children? And even if we do, how can we get her out with where she is?
Well, I hope they spend some time on that. I mean, that can't be a quick decision.
I mean, he sounds like he made it a viewer anons making it sound like this is, you know, throughout the film. So I guess that arc has time to develop. The next thing I had written down in the geekdom summary jumped out at me. It says there's an evil AI that can infect people in the city, and he tried to explain, he for a lack of a better phrase, he used zombies, but what he meant was just that it was mind control, you know, that it would take control over blue pills.
Yeah, we have some backstory about Smith overwriting copper tops and red pills, and that being unprecedented to the machines. They had tried to overwrite minds, but unsuccessful. The Oracle was the only one that could, I guess, write programs that would interface with human minds. And, you know, we haven't heard anything about the Oracle so far, and I don't think we do through this leak. And it's okay if your non chooses to leave that out, but that's kind of interesting. Now, as far as the analyst being able to mind control, this could be the machines either incorporating the Oracle or having a replacement that is a little more willing to play ball and, you know, overwriting them just on command. You know, the agents don't have to infect the humans. The humans will just that are hardwired to the matrix will just go on command and do whatever the machines want them to do. That's kind of a big deal with this machine human I guess relationship, or what is it when one feeds off the other? Symbiosis?
Symbiosis, yeah, symbiosis.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that word. That's actually a big deal. That's a cool plot point that someone like me is interested in.
Yeah, no, you know, that was a plot point. The symbiotic relationship was one of those things that they told Rarebit that he couldn't take out of the Matrix Online. So it's definitely an important facet of the Matrix universe franchise. Now, right, and shout out to Franz. Franz says he's late again. Well, there's always somebody who's late to class, but it's fine. We'll be offering extra credit throughout the course. But that said, please make sure you like the stream on your way in. If you're joining us late, make sure we get this out there to all of the yellow pilled subscribers who are down for the spoiler lifestyle. It sounds like we're getting really deep into some of these plot points here based on Geekdom re-uploading his full Matrix 4 spoiler audio, and viewer Anon joining us yet again to give his counter opinions in some cases, which is interesting, but also, you know, validating other things. So all in all, it's very exciting for me personally. It's something for us to do while we wait for the trailer. I saw I believe it was yesterday, I saw the Many Saints of Newark's trailer. So not to sidetrack, I just, you know, every now and then someone asks, "Oh, when do you think a trailer's coming out?" Well, okay, I believe that the Many Saints of Newark's finished shooting, I'm pretty sure, like before the pandemic, right? I could be wrong about that part, but they said that that's coming out in the fall. Didn't give a specific date. It'll be July tomorrow. So, I mean, you're talking about what, like 3 months before this movie comes out, maybe 4. Matrix 4 is December. So, you know, just looking at that, you could say we're probably not looking at a trailer until September, maybe, you know. Again, it's a different movie, it's a different project, so it doesn't have to be related at all. Like I said, people ask me when I think a trailer's coming out. Based on seeing that, I'd say it's probably going to be at least a couple months. I don't think it's going to be a couple weeks.
So I did a podcast with somebody who used to work at Warner Brothers, still has some friends that work at Warner Brothers, and Midnight told me, and I hope I get this right, the trailer may drop, per her information, during the Black Widow movie.
When does that come out? Do you know?
I think it's first week in August.
Okay.
And that
August.
podcast is up, so I'm not going behind her back, and I hope I have that correct.
Now, Black Widow is Marvel, correct?
Yeah, which surprised me a little bit.
Well, I mean, if you pay for it, you get the ad placement. That's how that works.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had so much speculation on the Spider-Man trailer, and it apparently movie theaters received the trailer like 2 weeks ago, and it still hasn't been out. So, what the hell is going on?
So they're saying everybody in the chat is we've got 3 different people saying July 9th is Black Widow's release date. So
July 9th. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, I hope I have that right. I hope I'm not spreading
if you have that right. If you have that right
on the internet.
If you have that right, that's not this Friday, but next Friday. So that'd be less than 2 weeks.
All right. Hey, I mean, if it drops, cool.
That'll be definitely something. If it drops, it's definitely something that we're going to be talking about for a while after, I assume. Yeah, it might be like the shortest version of a trailer.
Well, if they have a screening together, they have the trailer. They're just not putting it out yet.
Yeah, viewer Anon says Black Widow sounds right to me. I know they focus grouped a trailer. It's not that far off. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds like we could be in store for a trailer sooner than I thought.
Well, let me shout out Midnight and her podcast if I can. She's over on Twitter, and it's called What the Jess Podcast. And thank you, Midnight. Now, we have a Midnight here in the comments. I wonder if it is the Midnight. Midnight Stairs. If you are the Midnight, please let me know. And let me know if I'm correct.
Now, we've got a couple more points, but we're getting to the end of the World of Geekdom review here, or Matrix 4 full spoiler re-upload. In fact, I think right. So where we left off here, right. So we were talking about the supposed evil AI that is supposed to infect people in the city and control them. I believe that this is the herds that we saw chasing Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss through the streets of San Francisco. And Geekdom kind of verifies that by saying that the chase scene is the bike sequence that we saw leaked. And one of the first leaks was them jumping off the rooftop, right? And Geekdom says that, Neo tries to fly, but he can't. And that at one point, the analyst talks him down, that he was on a rooftop, that he thought that he could fly or something like that. And, the analyst doesn't want him to unlock his powers, right? But that Trinity can fly. And that is, the scene that we see leaked from San Francisco of them jumping off the rooftop together. At that point, Trinity can fly. She flies away with him. And he says that the final shot is them flying away into the screen together. That, both Neo and Trinity can fly at the end of the film. or at least at the end of the screening that they saw. We don't know if that will be the final frame in the final version.
Kind of mirrors part 1 with him flying off.
Right.
Implies more story can be told, whether that is on the table or not.
So Viewer Anon has I'd call it a correction here as far as the evil AI. He says that it's called the Swarm Protocol. He said it took him a while to remember. It's basically the new version of agents controlling blue pills. They think that this is more efficient. So I'm assuming that what he's describing here is that instead of the agents randomly jumping from witness to witness in order to secure a scene, this new protocol just has the blue pill act for them without being possessed by an agent.
Yeah, that sounds like a breach of the truce to me.
You said a breach of the truce?
Yes. And I have seen Swarm and Swarm Protocol on the IMDb, I guess, character list, for the actors. So yeah, it another thing that kind of points to this being legit, and Viewer Anon being legit and honest about this screening. Maybe all the
Yeah.
blue pills infect each other with stupid TikTok videos.
Yeah, put that up on the screen. Viewer Anon also says most of Warner Brothers 2022 movies have been marketed later than usual due to the HBO Max dual release.
Did we talk about Dune going back 3 weeks and any domino effect this might have? Maybe we get a full theatrical.
I think I did a video about that when they announced the Dune delay. But I don't know that we talked about it live.
So Dune got pushed back, I think, 3 weeks. It doesn't seem significant to me, but I'm not in the film industry, so I don't know. Thoughts on that?
So, like I said, what I have said previously is if the Matrix Resurrections or the Matrix 4 gets pushed back 9 days, so 3 weeks would be more than 9 days. It'll be in 2022, in which case, as reported by Warner, then the movies of 2022 will have a full theatrical release and not share an HBO Max streaming release.
Yeah, for
So
something like 6 weeks.
I think it's 6 weeks. Would that? Yeah, 45 days. Yep. So if that's the case for the Matrix 4, if they go 3 weeks, I mean, for whatever reason, I doubt that it would have a January release date. But it wouldn't surprise me if Dune, kind of had to eat it because of where it fell on the scheduling, and Matrix 4 could get pushed back and still have that full theatrical release. Now, were there any plot points that I missed or things that jumped out at you that you heard in the Geekdom, the World of Geekdom audio upload that we didn't discuss? I think I went through all the notes that I had for the stuff that jumped out at me.
Well, I was kind of looking for things that weren't in there, and like the Oracle. No mention of the Oracle, and I think we had some speculation on who might play the Oracle, but I don't know. It's not looking good.
I'm glad you brought that up. No, because I did think about that earlier in the conversation. I mean, we were well past the hour mark. So who knows how long ago I was thinking about it. But right, I believe either Soups, I think it was Soups in one of our previous conversations. It might have been Viewer Anon, but I think it was Soups that mentioned that Sati is still a child and that there is at least an Oracle reference. So the fact that, the World of Geekdom spoiler audio didn't mention either character, that was surprising. I didn't write that down, but I didn't write it down because he didn't mention either of them.
Yes. So Sati is a big mystery for me. I'm very curious as to what her purpose is. She wasn't a major character in the Matrix Online, but she was certainly there and she was present. And her importance was hinted at. Even there. So what's the deal? Come on, what's the deal with Sati? She's important. What's going on?
Well, not only is she important, what I find interesting is, kind of what I was saying before, just in terms of her character being played by Priyanka Chopra. In World of Geekdom's review, he talked about Groff's character, Neil Patrick Harris, Jessica Henwick, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. All characters were wondering, who are they playing? Who are they playing? There is no mention of Priyanka Chopra's character whatsoever. She's clearly in the film.
Maybe some parts not in the film, or significant parts. Who knows? I mean, it's like I said, I'm not in the film industry. I don't know how these screenings go. Do they have 2 screenings with, some have more Sati and Oracle and Niobe scenes, and others have more Jonathan Groff and Neo Trinity? I don't know.
Well, Viewer Anon says if Geekdom didn't mention it, he's staying out of this one. So
Now,
I think
he also said.
Go ahead.
I think he also said that the movie was pretty long.
Right.
Now the first 3 were all very close. I think they were 2 hours and 14 minutes, or maybe 2 hours and 16 minutes, but they were all over 2 hours, and they were very close. They were all within about a minute or two of each other as far as runtime goes. So I don't see why this would be any different.
Yeah, Beverly says I heard she only had they only had her in only a few scenes, not that much of her. And David says they said Priyanka's role is the new Merv's wife. Now that rumor is one that I've also repeated, but I guess what I was saying in terms of Priyanka Chopra today is that just that the Geekdom audio did not mention her at all. So I had heard that too. I just was, I guess, sort of expecting to hear him also echo that or repeat that, and he didn't. So that's why it was just interesting to me. Right, because Viewer Anon says that Priyanka's role has nothing to do with the Merovingian. And he also says that Resurrections ran about 2 hours, 40 minutes, but it can always be trimmed.
I expect it to be somewhere around that 2:15 mark, but that's just me. What else? Not Jupiter Ascending, the one about the one that Halle Berry was in, and Tom Hanks. I don't know why this
Cloud
movie.
Atlas.
Thank you. Escaping my mind. I heard that movie ran very long. I'm waiting until after Resurrections before I go see that. That way, maybe the cinematography is fresh to me and it doesn't feel recycled.
Curious about Ellen Hallman's role. Also, great point. No mention of Ellen Hallman by the World of Geekdom's audio.
No mention of female agents.
And David says, so she is a grown-up Sati. No, I wouldn't say that she is. Viewer Anon says that her role has nothing to do with the Merovingian. I don't know that Sati would fall into that boat specifically.
This jump scene where Trinity catches Neo and they fly off.
Yes.
That was revealed to be actually Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves. I mean, that's a big stunt. So
Yeah, that was actually Ellen Hallman's. Well, no, who David, no, James McTeague revealed that, but Ellen Hallman's husband built the rig that they jumped off of. That's what happened.
oh wow, Jesus Christ. Oh,
You know, he's
well,
8711
apparently
as
he's
well.
good at what he does.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
good at
they're
what
all
he does.
8711.
So that alone for Keanu Reeves to jump off a building for a movie, that gives me a lot of confidence in the movie. I don't think that the guy makes good movies. The guy's doing very well with his life. He's not gonna take a risk like that for a movie that he doesn't believe in. Leave the oligarchs alone. I want to speculate on that more.
I'm sorry, you speculate on
Oh
what?
no, I was so Vladimir Jr. said nothing on the oligarchs either. So I was like,
Yeah,
hey,
put that on the screen.
leave that alone. I want to speculate on the oligarchs. Uh, the oligarchs are a pretty cool side story in the Matrix Online. I think it's one of those things that's a callback to earlier times in the Matrix timeline that could have serious implications, and I hope it comes back in some form or another.
If you guys are holding your breath waiting for the oligarchs to be mentioned in the Matrix 4, I'm gonna tell you don't. Oh man. Marie asked, does anyone know why Don Davis didn't return? I believe that they are just going with the same sound designer from Cloud Atlas that you just mentioned. I think that was the decision there. I don't think that it's a beef thing or anything like that. Shout out to Kavion in the room. Viewer Anon says does verify that there's more action than the San Francisco leaks, a couple of fights and shootouts. Yeah, the geekdom, the world of geekdom audio definitely made it sound like the San Francisco action was kind of like the only action in the movie outside of the whatever real world stuff they went through.
Well, I don't think this really spoils all too much. With the things that we've seen already, the leaked footage that's been on YouTube for, over a year, like the swarm, like it's kind of the first place my mind goes to is like, oh, all these pedestrians are going to attack, the heroes. Well, the machines must found a way to just control people. And it's not that far-fetched because they're hardwired to the Matrix. There have been several iterations and versions of agents throughout the versions of the Matrix. So this is just another step. Uh, I, I am hoping to see a female agent and imply that it's Agent Pace, just because Matrix Online related.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything mentioned about a female agent yet. Joker says that Geekdom said towards the end, Neo is stopping bullets and doing all types of powers and stuff. Oops, I think we lost Vesuvius there. See if he comes back to join us. This is actually like a very in-depth question. So, directed to viewer Anon. It says, you mentioned people who love it will really love it. I'm guessing he's referencing your original tweet about the reaction to seeing the test screen. What are the most divisive aspects of the film that will cause people to either love or hate it? Yeah, V, if you can hear me, it says that your device is not connected, so it's not letting me add you back to the live stream, but I can see you. Viewer None says, I guess I'll say this. You haven't heard about agents because they're not really a thing anymore. So that said, if you're saying that agents aren't really a thing anymore, I mean, that only adds to my confusion when Geekdom refers to Morpheus as an agent. Something just seems off about that description. Viewer Anon says it references the other movies. It pokes fun at there being another Matrix sequel. It's also not any more audience friendly than say Reloaded was. Lana is making the movie she wants to make. He says there are agents in the opening scene, but it's an intentional reference to the original Matrix. Right, and then there's also the description of the Agent Johnson fight. So right, so you've got the Agent Johnson fight, which Geekdom sort of hinted at that being like a kind of quick cameo. But then, you know, he makes it sound like Jonathan Groff playing Agent Smith, quote unquote, is, you know, in a good chunk of the movie. Like I said, I'm more confused with the whole Morpheus being labeled an agent thing. That something just seems like it's a telephone game there. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to this. Viewer None says Johnson is in exile. He isn't an agent anymore. So that actually can explain a lot there in terms of the agents not being a thing anymore. A Viewer Anon says, as an example, everyone complaining Zion was boring and Reloaded. The real world is treated similarly in Resurrections. Morpheus / agent. It's just hard to explain. You'll understand more within the first 15 minutes or so of the movie. I'm sure you don't want to see the movie. I'm sure most of my questions will be answered. But at this stage, for me, like I said, I feel as though, you know, we're looking at the parallels between the general, who I thought Neil Patrick Harris would be playing, and the Analyst. And I think we have Vesuvius back. Let's see if we can add him to the stream now. Oh, your
I'm back.
So yeah, we're talking about this whole Morpheus being labeled an agent thing, and like I said, for me, because we were doing the parallel between the general and the Analyst, and the general was responsible for the Morpheus sim in the Matrix Online, I can just see where it's very possible that World of Geekdom is, like I said, it's telephone game. It's like I could see where that character is related to the system, or in this case, the Analyst, in the same way that the general resurrected or created the Morpheus sim, right? But that wouldn't necessarily classify him as an agent or even a sentinel when we're talking about the general. Viewer Anon says, I think people who've never seen another Matrix movie will be very, very confused. Dude, I think people who've seen the other Matrix movies are already confused.
Yeah, Reloaded has been out for a long time, and Without other people, I still would not understand what the architect scene is really about. Hmm.
There are things called modals that are sort of mini simulations. So we see things that aren't within the main body of the matrix. Well, that's very fun for me personally because I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll be playing with something similar to that. We need more challenging mainstream films. I'm excited about that. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see where Lana takes this franchise. And it sounds like from the Matrix 4 full spoilers re-upload that they've open ended the ending so that there could be more. I mean, more of even some of these characters. It sounded like. So Marie asks, there were a lot of rumors of new way of doing cinema and would change the industry on the set like the first Matrix. Did you feel that? To which viewer Anon replies, I did not, but I don't think that's a slight on the film. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward to unique looks. I felt like there might have been some extra hype thrown on some of those quotes. Uh, but I'm hoping it'll be fun to look at, if that makes sense. I'm reserving my expectations in a lot of areas, but one place where I guess it's hard for me to do that, you know, I kind of expect this to look good on a big screen. Viewer non says, I think it both fits and doesn't fit. It's a jarring transition between movies, but it's supposed to be. I personally think it's a satisfying payoff to the last Sati Oracle moment in Revolutions.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said before, I think that the pivot is going to probably be to a streaming series. You know, that doesn't mean we won't get more films. That doesn't mean we won't get a video game. But I just think that if I had to guess what was coming next, it'd be streaming series or video game before a Matrix 5.
Well, I hope we get both. I
Yeah,
like
I'm
I like
certainly rooting for all of the above.
I like video for that passive entertainment. I for all my affection towards the Matrix Online, it was freaking hard to follow the storyline as it unfolded in a video game setting. There was lag, there was timing being involved in these live events. So it was a challenge.
So viewer Anon says, I feel like Lana delights herself in the movie by making the audience say, what the hell? That's what I mean by intentionally jarring.
I agree that the architect scene. I mean, come on. There's no reason other than you want people to rewatch your movie and wonder. There's no other reason to use the kind of language and the pace of that scene. it was intentionally confusing and condescending.
I'll disagree with you a little bit there, just because I've been doing a lot of just I guess research in terms of writing and writing screenplays, and specifically to this conversation writing voices. And I think that the choice to have the architect be very verbose and grandiose with his vocabulary was very specific for a couple of reasons. One, yeah, I will. Okay, yes, it confuses people. A lot of people don't know all the words he's using necessarily, so you have to go back and pay more attention. That is certainly a possible part of it. But I think the other part of it is in giving this machine that created the Matrix this unique voice, and to your point, it makes that condescending tone justified. Like, we don't know really anything about the Matrix, or even the architect specifically, his origins or backstory, other than what he tells us in that scene. But again, because of the even overuse of vocabulary in that scene, you can read those words and know specifically that this is the architect speaking. It gives him a very defined character in that moment. And just like many things in the Matrix universe, there are layers to that voice. But I definitely think that choice not only was very specific, but very accurate in its delivery. Like, for me, I get where a lot of people might have even been turned off or tuned out because of all those things that we just talked about, because of that strange sort of overuse of vocabulary, right? But for me, when I was watching it for the first time, it was like almost what Viewer 9 was just talking about, that whole forcing the audience to say what the hell. But for me, in a good way, it was in a, oh, this dude made the Matrix and he's about to explain everything right now. Now, he explained a lot. There are a lot of nuggets in that speech. I mean, a ton. Everything, no. But that's what I mean. Just because of how he comes in with that tone, that's what I expected out of that conversation. And it was close. It's probably as close as you're going to get, or the most information you get out of one conversation in the Matrix universe. Viewer Anon said, did I read that? He says, it's more finished than I expected. I'd say 85% of the visual effects looked complete. I believe World of Geekdom said 95% in his spoilers upload. So there's bullet time even referenced in dialogue. So I'm sure that's the meta references. Frothy Philosophy says, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how the original Matrix films are referenced. The actual Matrix films exist in the universe of this movie, ? Magneto says, the architect is my favorite scene. The way he speaks informs you who and what he is, how he thinks. Yeah, and I don't want to give away too much because I didn't want to try to emulate that voice, but yeah, it's definitely a home run as far as design goes. As one realizes one is a dream figure in another person's dream, that is self-awareness.
I've heard this before.
Have you? Yeah, we are getting close to the 2-hour mark here, but I think we covered most of the plot points in that World of Geekdom upload today, or re-upload, I should say. Viewer Non says it's where Thomas and Tiffany see each other, and it's where she needs to make her final decision. I'm not sure what that was the answer to. Oh, that's the answer to this question, I believe, which is the what's special about Simulate Coffee Shop. Gamey SB says, "What's up?" He can't listen. Halfway reading the chat while working, and we'll catch up and watch the stream later. Well, that's interesting. I think one thing that we can kind of take away from tonight's conversation and the Matrix 4 full spoilers re-upload is that Agent Smith stunt double probably for Jonathan Groff, right?
I think so. If he's playing the Prime Smith.
Or the quote-unquote remapped Smith. Okay, now this is a question that directly references something that was in Geekdom's audio. And it asks viewer Anon, are there any clips from the previous Matrix like flashbacks? To which he replies, a ton. As an example, Jonathan Groff will do an Agent Smith thing, and the movie will flash to Hugo Weaving doing the same thing. So that's actually really interesting. We didn't hear anything that specific as far as the flashbacks go. Like they're legit looks of or from the original films, I take it. So this comment says, I think we should be getting a trailer soon. Warner Brothers released a Space Jam spot referencing The Matrix a couple of hours ago. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the stream here. Based on some of Vesuvius's intel, we are currently theorizing that there could maybe be a Matrix snippet trailer type thing going on with the release of Black Widow on July 9th. So keep an eye out for that. We have to see if that lines up to be true, and we will find out soon because July 9th is not this Friday, but next Friday. So, if you guys see anything uploaded, posted, do not hesitate to comment, tag me, reach out, let me know it's out there so we can take a look and do a little reaction live. I'd love to be able to show it. On the shared screen here. I don't know how that would work as far as strikes go, but I've seen other people do it. So
yeah, I think it'll be similar where you might have to cut it up. But I would probably
like play a little bit, then we'll talk about what we saw, stop it, like pause, talk about what we saw, pause, like that.
Yeah, I would probably do a similar video as well. Not live though.
Yeah, viewer announces the latest I can imagine a trailer going out is with the Suicide Squad on August 6th.
Oh, you know what? Midnight might have told me Suicide Squad. That's why I said first week in August. Crap. All right.
Now you got to go listen to the now you got to go listen to the podcast again.
There's officially misinformation on the internet.
Oh, that's something new. We've never seen that before.
No, it's crazy.
I still get comments about National Keanu Reeves Day. So that said, for everybody who's been following the whole Black Widow thing, there may be a correction there. It may be the Suicide Squad that was referenced, which would go back to the original time frame you mentioned of early August. Um, that seems to fit more here. I really feel like next Friday is too soon, but first week of August, that I could see that floating.
No, they'll probably have Spider-Man during the other one, during Black Widow. Although I tell you, Spider-Man could probably just have its own release, just do some kind of big release just for the trailer, because I think that movie is probably going to be #1 for the year, and I think Matrix will be behind it, hopefully close.
Yeah, David says it makes more sense since Suicide Squad is Warner Brothers, and that's what I was kind of thinking when I was asking. I was like, yeah, that's Marvel. Which I mean, like I said, if they pay for it, it could happen. But yeah, that does make more sense. Yeah, viewer Anon says it's hard to say since Spider-Man is technically Sony. Far From Home didn't have a trailer on Avengers Endgame. All right. Well, we've officially crossed the 2-hour mark in this session. So again, if you haven't already, please make sure you like the stream, share it. I'm going to take a couple more questions here. If I see something before we wrap this up, is there anything you're working on that you want to plug? Because that's the thing I like, I'm trying to get this writing process finished here. So I'm going to jump back into that as soon as we end this. But what are you working on over there?
Working on, I've got the Assassin Mask going out very soon to Mr. Lazarus, Neo Matrixology, and that might be the last Assassin Mask that I make for quite some time. I'll see if anybody's interested them in the future, but after a long weekend off, I'm going to be getting back to my ability tree poster, which I'm very happy with how that's coming out. So I will be posting that on my Instagram when that is available.
Now, why are you taking a break from the Assassin Masks, if you don't mind me asking you live?
It's pretty labor intensive, and
Okay.
I have some other things that I want to do. But the Assassin Mask is, I'm very happy with how they come out, and very cool character from the Matrix Online, and yeah, just labor intensive. I want to hit some other things. I was actually thinking beer pint glasses with some code bits in them, so I'm gonna get cracking on that probably after I finish my ability tree poster. And the deadline I gave myself for the ability tree poster was today, and I'm not going to be able to finish it, but it will be very good when it is finished.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for that project. I was actually trying to think of what would be a buff or ability that would like enhance a user's connection to the Matrix, or does that make sense? Because they're red pills, right? So obviously be like
Yeah.
a bootleg broadcast, right? But you get what I'm saying.
Oh, well, let me list a couple. Let's see. Because I've got my test print here, which I was very happy with how it printed. I had it printed through a website called Zazzle.com, but my design was a little too small. There's over 500 abilities. I think there's 500 and something abilities, and they all have their own label. So let's see. We have Let's look at the upgrade master.
And just real quick, Frothy Philosophy says, thanks for all the info and thoughts, viewer Anon. Yes, thank you again for joining in. I know it was last minute, so I really appreciate you coming in to kind of verify and clear up some of the things that was mentioned in the Matrix 4 full spoiler re-upload by World of Geekdom. And again, I'm excited that it's not like concrete, that there are things left open to interpretation. And I personally don't feel like we fully spoiled it, but I get where people are trying to dodge spoilers. I'm like that with the Marvel stuff, and so I get where people are coming from. Yeah. No, Magneto said it best. If you are in fear of the spoiler, get to a hard line. Get out. Check out now. Did you find what you were looking for?
I did not. But I will leave that up to the audience when I release it.
Viewer Anon says, no problem. Thanks for putting up with me. Well, yeah, I'm going to harass you for some ideas there at some point, because I definitely want to make a reference to that if possible. I kind of realized I didn't have the number of Matrix Online references that I wanted. So well, on that note, like the stream and share. I want to thank everybody for attending this class of Matrix 4 Spoilers Revolutions, as this is our third live conversation in a row. But it was a lot to go through. And, as we talked about, Matrix Geekdom's video originally got taken down. And really, it sounded like he was risking it just posting this. It wouldn't surprise me if Warner Brothers, put in a copyright strike for that as well. I don't know what is different about it. That's what I wanted to ask you. From what you heard, that little bit that you heard before and what you heard today, would you say that he re-recorded everything, or that he just like had a different intro and then played the same thing from before?
Different intro, and then he just added it onto the front of the original video recording.
Right. Okay.
All right, so I got an answer for you as to what abilities would enhance a red pill's connection to the Matrix. And I would say there's something called hypersense, calm mind, calm body, empty mind, potency, clear head, clear mind, which are buffs. Most of those are actually buffs.
I like potency. Wait, but start from the top, because I missed those first couple. Hypersense, I think you said?
Hypersense. Calm mind, calm body.
I vaguely remember calm mind. Vaguely. But
Empty
potency
mind
might be the one.
Yeah, clear head, clear mind, which are in the physician and doctor trees. Because you can heal. You could heal in this game. So if you were a healer, you were like a doctor or a physician. And then you could upgrade team members too. So you would be an upgrade artist or upgrade master.
Yeah, Midnight Spares is still on. It says Geekdom's video is still up. So yeah, no Warner Brothers strike yet, knock on wood. There is a link, I believe I edited. There's a link to that upload for anybody who didn't get a chance to listen to it in the description of this live stream. So, shout out, full credit to World of Geekdom, viewer Anon. Soups. I feel like, was there somebody, was it like giant freaking robot was the blog that kind of went off of Geekdom's information when his stuff got taken down before. So shout out to all those guys for putting all that information out there for us to analyze and kind of give our opinions of here. Again, all this is alleged test screen information. Neither one of us were there. We're just playing the telephone game with all of you here. And that's one thing I did want to thank all of you who are here for, because one of the goals of this channel is to kind of like crowdsource information, right? Where, it's not just me finding things, but, me sharing stuff that other people have found and presented. So yeah, thanks for being a part of that, everybody, especially those of you who have submitted links and stories and just kind of kept me in the loop while things have been crazy over here. Yeah, this comment says the Matrix 4 might be a single one-off. What do you guys think? You guys think there needs to be more breathing room for a part 5? I just think that other stuff will come before a part 5. I could be wrong. This could be it for all we know. That's why I really want us to come out and support, because if the demand is there, they will give us more supply.
Yeah, let's support Warner Brothers and the Matrix franchise with ticket sales and popcorn sales and merchandise sales. And if they have a game, I've already talked to my kids. If they come out with a Matrix game and it's not PC or Nintendo Switch, that we'll get another console, but we're not getting another console until then.
Kind of hedge your bets there. Yeah, no, I already know if that's the case. If that's the case, I'll be doing the same. I will be buying whatever console is required to play the new Matrix game. Got a little money tucked away for such an event. But all right. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go and work on this. Actually, oh man, someone asked me about the comic series. I know I took a little break there because that's the thing. I think the last couple Sundays we had been talking about this kind of stuff, the different potential spoilers, and there was the Clayton Watson interview, right? So I didn't get a chance to do another comic breakdown of a Matrix comic story. So that happened, and yeah, I think someone like left a comment like, "Oh, are you gonna finish the series?" And I took a break, so I got to get back on those. I think the next one in order of the Ultimate Matrix collection is an easy one, which is one of those comics that was only printed in the 20th anniversary edition. So I was like, reading it recently, I was like, wow, I'm really unfamiliar with this story.
Yeah, so probably I am as well, because I went back. I used my 20th anniversary hardcover as like a reference, and I think I've read Goliath again, but most of those I just go back and like look through them and look for certain things as opposed to sitting and reading all of them.
So that's right. So stay tuned, because there will be more Matrix comic videos. Like I said, it's a passion project for me. I want to have the goal is to have them all done before the Matrix 4 comes out, because there's still plenty to go. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us tonight, and be sure to follow Vesuvius on Twitter and Instagram. That's at VesuviusMXO, and I am at Neo Matrixology on both. And class dismissed.